On the Road with Kelly and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last. Coming up on this episode...
I love building things and making things work.
Hi, we're Kelly
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination. Hi, and thanks for joining us for this edition of On the Road with Kelly and Bob. I'm Kelly Phillips.
And I'm Bob Phillips. If you're a first-time listener, what we do is simple. We travel the highways and byways of America, finding stories about people who are doing something to make our world a better, or at least more interesting place. All kinds of people, all kinds of stories.
And if you don't find a particular story to your liking, just wait a few minutes because chances are you will identify more with the next one. Fact is, it's the total body of work. All the stories we tell that makes up the end message. We live in a fascinating world.
Kelly, you know that I am always intrigued with why people do what they do, especially those people who could be doing just about, anything they choose with their lives, but who pick something just the other side of different, that kind of odd calling to occupy their time.
You mean people like Christian Hofmeister in Trinidad, Colorado.
I grew up back east. My dad actually went to Cornell, and then he went to CSU Law. He was in the Air Force, and then he ended up in Colorado. My dad was in his final semester at law school, and my mom was pregnant. It was too much stress for my dad. And so my mom went back east because her parents lived in Massachusetts, and I was born there. And then all that happened right after it. He passed the bar, went on, and then decided that it was a struggle at that point to get off his feet. Had 2 kids, and was like, and my grandfather, my mother's dad, was like, you can come work in the family business. He did highway construction and road work. And
wait, he went through law school, passed the bar,
yep.
and went back to the family
and then
business.
Just chucked it all.
Yep, totally. It was like,
he's my
experience.
hero. If there's somebody who should get the credit or the blame for Christian Hofmeister's entrepreneurial spirit and that desire to do something really different with his life, it should probably be his dad, the man who went to law school, passed the bar, and walked away from a life in law to run a family business building highways. Of course, that decision turned out okay.
He liked to build things anyway.
He liked to do things with his hands.
Yeah. My dad and my uncle ended up running the business years later.
All right, so people, of course, who are listening to this can't see you.
Sure.
But take my word for it. The guy whose shop we are standing in right now does not, I don't get East Coast vibes.
No, not at all.
Whatever those are off of you. So,
like I said, I was 17. I'm 62 now, so I've been here for a long time.
So you're a Colorado guy
I'm
now.
I'm a Colorado guy, yeah, pretty much. I ended up growing up here, finishing high school, and going through college. So I went to the gunsmithing school here.
So Christian went not only to trade school to better hone his skills, making and fixing stuff and doing the things he loves.
Like to hunt and fish and shoot guns and build things.
He went to gunsmithing school, where he learned to build all kinds of firearms from scratch, precision instruments that have a tiny margin of error and zero tolerance for mistakes. Who knew there was such a thing as gunsmithing school? Well, turns out the oldest one in America is right here in Trinidad, Colorado. He even taught gunsmithing for a while.
But Christian wasn't content with hanging out his gunsmithing shingle and waiting for business to show up in the little shop behind his house. Here on the farm, he shares with his wife and family.
We do farming anyway, so.
What kind of farming, by the way?
We raise hay for all. My wife rides horses. She rides competitively, does that 3-day eventing. And she does all that, her and my daughter. So we raise hay and I take care of horses.
Wow. And then on the side, do gunsmithing.
Nope. Christian decided to step it up a notch or 10, gone to work in a place where the demand for excellence was at its very highest, creating firearms for members of the U.S. Olympics team.
When I first got out of school, out of gunsmithing school, I went to work with Mark Janlin and Dave Sullivan up north in Boulder at Rocky Mountain Rifle Works. And Mark's a barrel maker, and so he made custom rifle barrels. And so he had a real big following of match shooters nationally. We were doing that, so Mark made barrels and I built guns. We built guns for Bob Foth. He shot in on the Olympic team and shot nationally. So got medals and all that. Yeah. There's a cannon sitting
Oh my
there.
gosh, what is this?
That's a 50 target rifle, 50 BMG.
Oh my gosh. So that'll blow a hole in steel, right?
Yes. It's a gun to shoot the King of the 2 Miles. So it's a match gun.
Back at the Hofmeister's farm, just outside of Trinidad, we are standing with Christian in his workshop, where he's just pointed out a spectacular firearm he's been working on for competitive shooters, a cannon, as he calls it, that shoots a 50 caliber bullet 2 miles at a target the size of a pizza. This thing has got to be exact.
And they shoot that down they shoot it in a bunch of places around the country, but they shoot at 2 miles.
How does one sight?
They
2
have
miles.
Really big scope, and actually they've got a weird periscope thing, which is funny because the guns have to shoot at such an angle so they can see over them like that.
Is this one of those where the curvature of the earth actually figures into your targeting?
There's so much calculation that goes on with that stuff. You should see they've got computers that they run with those things, and wind meters and flags and things, the whole 9 yards, and then they got scopes with big turrets on them so they can adjust everything.
Christian Hofmeister is a gunsmith, widely recognized as one of the best anywhere. Truth is, he could be building widgets or fixing flat tires, and he would still give the job that same attention to detail.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just what he's doing that matters to Christian, it's why he's doing it.
Christian, how did this get into your brain to know how to do this? This is fascinating.
They're all basically just machines. That's all they are. They're just machines. And
Which is what a gun is.
It is.
It's a
just
machine.
Yep. And so it's a tool to get a certain job done. And so gunsmithing and building custom guns is basically just taking it that next step. So you make sure that everything that you do from step 1 all the way to the completed gun is done to the best of your ability.
How long will you do this?
Probably until I can't do it anymore.
You like it that much?
I like it, yeah. What else would you do? You know, people talk about retiring, and they're like, I'm going to retire and I'm going to do.
Some of them who dream of retiring and working on guns, believe it or not.
I'm already there.
You're doing what you love.
Yeah, I like to do it.
If you get the idea that Christian Hofmeister is a guy with a laser focus on what he's doing and even why he's doing it, you would be right.
In talking to Christian, we realized that he can go days working here at his shop on the farm without seeing anyone else except for maybe family. And he's just fine with that.
And I think maybe his time working in Boulder, Colorado, right after he got out of gunsmithing school could have had something to do with his love for solace.
During the summer months when the students weren't there, I mean, there was like nobody in Boulder. I mean, it was like empty. You could go anywhere at any time of day and there'd be, nobody. You could go in any store you wanted. And then when the students came back, that 50, 60,000 people flooded into the town, and you're like, whoa.
They're back.
And then it was just after years of doing that, it finally decided that gunsmithing was probably what I wanted to do just to break out of the world.
All right, the trades, I get that. I would get it if you said, okay, I'm going to go learn to be a welder, or I'm going to,
But you're
a carpenter.
specialized.
But you have said gunsmithing. Where did that get into your brain that I'm going to build guns?
My dad, when I was a boy, when we lived back east, he shot competitively handgun because that's what he liked to do. He liked to shoot as well. And so he shot competitively then, and he shot with the state police on their league.
He was good.
I was 10 maybe. He would come home and load ammo, and I was always like, this is
that was fascinating
the
to
coolest
you?
thing that's ever happened. I remember I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and he shot, of course, he had a Smith & Wesson 22 target pistol that he shot. He came home from shooting, and it had a malfunction. The hammer wouldn't stay cocked anymore, because of course it had a light trigger, because it was a match gun. I remember being like, that sucks. And he sat down, he said, come on, let's go down to the shop. He had a shop in the basement, and we went down, took it apart, and he sat down with a stone and stoned up the hammer and the sear on that thing. And in like 30 minutes, he's like, and I was like, that's fascinating.
You fixed it.
He fixed it just like that. And I was like, huh.
Kind of sounds, that's like where the seed was planted.
Yeah, it just kept going from there. So I was always fascinated by things then that didn't work. So, of course, we're kids back then, everybody broke their bicycle. You fixed your bicycle and the lawnmower. And
No. I learned the hard way. You cannot take all the spokes off your wheels and put them back. Don't do it.
It's a job.
Don't do it. But now jumping into the gun thing, you better not have any extra pieces, right?
That's
when
it,
you're
exactly.
done. This is a little different. Yeah.
It's a different level of the world. Guns have to work, and of course they have to be safe, and you don't want them to grenade on you.
You were never scared of guns because you grew up around them.
No, we always had them. I shot a BB gun when I don't even know how old. Always had them, and I don't even know how many. I'd shoot hundreds of rounds every single week for decades. Just did that all the time. That was just what you did. That's really what ended up taking me actually into the strange handgun route that I ended up in. With a handgun.
I'm not a big hunter, just never was. But I didn't know people went hunting with handguns.
Yep.
That's a thing.
It is a thing. And it was really popular back in the 80s. Handgun silhouette shooting was big.
Right,
then.
Now, is that what you build today, is handguns?
I build everything. I build long-range guns. So everything is done on the lathe, and we indicate everything, and we go through, make sure everything's concentric. And it takes a lot to go through one of those and build them so that they've got the accuracy that they can do long-range shooting with.
What about all the calculations and stuff? I mean, if this barrel isn't exactly right,
It's going to grenade on you, like you said.
yeah, I mean,
It is. But that's all the simple stuff. The size, and there's a chart on the wall there. You see those figures on those graph right there. That's a safety margin, and that's from calculations that they did at Savage Arms, so that they would know what diameter barrels and what calibers needed so much wall thickness on the barrels, so that you don't have problems. So we just use those just to keep track of what we're doing.
Do these fit here also?
Those are for different guns. You can see these are all three. Actually, they're all King of the 2 Mile guns, all three of these, and they needed to be rebarreled. That's why they're all here. Because, shoot the barrels out when you shoot cannons like that. They don't last all that long.
Yeah.
How many people let's say in the United States, are there who know how to do what you know how to do?
There's probably quite a few that do it. There's levels, of course. It's like kind of like everything, you know. There's people who are good at it, and there's people who just do it. And I won't say that I'm the best person in the world to do that.
Oh, he's getting humble on us.
Yes.
We already know what the hell
Exactly.
he's at before we got here.
We just well, thank you. We just do what we can as best as we can. That's all we do.
Okay, you keep saying we, but I don't see anybody else in here
you and a
beside
mouse?
you.
Yeah, I have a mouse. Yeah, I have a mouse. Me. That's kind of it. We just do what we can. I do what I can. Excuse me. So it's just a thing. You know, when you make things, your eye changes. You look at things a certain way, and you learn to see things that aren't obvious to other people. You can see something that's not quite straight, or this isn't quite right. And so as you constantly improve those things as you go along, like I said, I've been doing this since 1989. It's improved along the way.
And you get better and better as you do this.
Exactly. You improve those things in the way that you do those things. And I'm sure there's people in the world who still do it differently. And there's an aspect of, like everything that people do, there is always somebody who's a better salesman than you are.
Now you're talking about marketing as opposed
That's
to...
not me.
Yeah.
I'm not a big guy. I don't talk to people. You know, I don't need a giant internet presence. I don't advertise in the magazines. I don't do any of that.
You're a word-of-mouth guy, aren't you?
Yes.
People know who you are,
It happens.
who need to know who you are.
You know, and a lot of the people, I'm sure that there will probably be people who would like to know who I am, who don't.
Right.
But I have enough work to do.
Do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
We certainly have an attention to detail that is beyond a lot of other people's. There's a lot of things that everybody settles it's for something. When you build anything, it's never going to be perfect. So you just keep trying.
You've never built one that you went, that's it. It's perfect.
No,
That's yet to happen, really.
no, it's never happened. No, I've been happy with some of them. No, I've never done one that was perfect.
Do you think you ever will? Is that the goal?
No.
No?
No, I don't think I ever will. It's that because at my age, we're not as sharp as we were 25 years ago. If I knew what I know today 25 years ago, I probably would have made better guns. As you get older, of course, your eyes start to go. You know, after you turn 50 and you start to realize those things, they start to fade a little bit. Went to the eye doctor and said, dude, I don't see like you used to see. And so it's like, okay, he gives you the whole thing. And he goes, what did you come in here for? And I was like, dude, I can't see like I used to. He's like, dude, you have 20/20 vision. Like, I know I used to have 20/10 vision. So what's the deal?
I want to be perfect.
And so it was just one of those kind of funny things.
What do you think about when you're working on a gun? You thinking about the gun? You think about the customer who you're making it for? What is?
All of that. Yeah, I think about what the guy's going to do with it, what's important to him. I like to talk to those people when I'm going to build one so that you can tell where they're going, you know, and what they're really interested in. Because it's just like that when you build guns for somebody. If you're going to build, because I think when I pick up a gun and look at it and pull the trigger and go, oh, that's nice. There's a lot of people who cannot handle that at all because the trigger weight is way too light. Oh. For the average guy who hunts once a year, you know, he just wants a nice gun. I want a nice gun. So you make him a nice gun and he's like, whoa, dude, that thing's scary. All I did was think about shooting it. It went off and I'm like, yeah, well, you know, a nice gun it's something that means different things to everybody. And so, you know, some people like synthetic stock guns, some people like wood stock guns. Everybody has really what's interesting to them because it's an art form. What it is that attracts them to them is either the way they shoot or the way they look or a combination. There's so much that goes on in everybody's interpretation of what nice guns are. Finding that spot in them and talking to them is really the only way.
That helps you customize it for what they need and want.
Now, you mentioned art form. Do you consider yourself an artist?
Yes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good
There
for
are a
you.
lot of people that that would say, no, I'm not an artist,
Thank
but
you.
you do.
Yeah, thank you for owning that. Seriously.
I'm not afraid of it. I mean, like I said, I make things
I mean, we know you are because we've already seen your stuff.
already.
Yeah.
So it's an art form, and when you work in all mediums that we do, when you work in synthetic and you work in wood and you work in metal and we weld, we do all kinds of things. And so guns are just the way that we portray those things. When they first started building the matchlock cannons, that was in the 1300s.
And I guess it just evolved from there.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. When they started to learn actually how to make gunpowder and how to build all the things, when they went through from being, muzzle loaders to the fancy cartridge guns that we shoot today. It's been a long evolution, but honestly, it's the same thing. We've kind of hit, honestly, a plateau, really.
How so?
Because about, in about 1900, when we really started making good cartridge guns like we have today, that was 100 years ago. It's actually been almost 125 years ago.
And we're still making those.
We still make those. The 1898 Mauser rifle that went into the First World War and did all that stuff through the Second World War. We still build guns out of those things today. Fancy, nice guns. There's so many things that we do today that are exactly like they were when they opened the college there in 47.
Really?
Exactly the same. We make tools. One of the projects that we made when we were in school, we made all of our chisels. This was a project that we did at school. I still use them today.
What's this?
These are just copper pieces, and that's a gouge. We just made these. We formed them. You hammer them, and you do that on an anvil, and heat treat them, sharpen them.
And you do what with these?
Make fancy wood stocks.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the one with the...
This is for actually inletting the recoil lug. So you need to actually, the recoil lug sits down into the stock, so you need to be able to get down into the stock to cut a little trench in there. And round ones and scrapers.
Wow. And I look around your shop here, and some of this stuff, it looks like it may have been around for a while.
Some of it?
Yeah. I mean,
That's probably a 60s vintage machine.
in 1960s, that machine there? What about this over here?
That one might be 60s. It may have been in the 50s.
And what do you do with that?
That I mill those slots in those barrels like that.
Yeah, I see where you've been milling.
All of these shavings.
All these, yeah. These started, the large caliber ones, these were just a 2-inch solid rifled blank. And then I put them in the lathe and contour them, put the contour on them, turn them and taper them so they aren't quite so heavy like that. Those guns are heavy anyway, and then turn them, flute them, fit them to the actions. And we true the receivers, and it's the learning experience thing. When they mass manufacture rifle actions, they're made in just a different manufacturing facility. And so they have tolerances that they work to, and its factory tolerance for a rifle receiver isn't okay for us, so we have to go ahead and remachine them on the inside. So we recut the threads and the locking lug seats and the faces of them so that they're all true and concentric to the bolt, so that all that stuff then, the chamber then is directly in line with the center of the barrel. And when we build accurate guns, that's the way they need to be.
Is it true that each one is a one of a kind?
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, because when we rethread those, we don't thread them to a fixed number. We thread them till they're straight.
What will this, for instance, be used for?
That's
the 2 mile.
2 mile one, yep.
Shooting 2 miles, what are you shooting?
They shoot at actually it's a 2 MOA steel target that they shoot at. So
And
at 2 miles, that's pretty big. But when you're shooting at something that's 2 miles away, that's a long way. You got a little bit of arc and trajectory. And if the wind's blowing hard, it matters. But when you're shooting at 2 miles, almost no wind you can't handle, because anything at that range, it's got to do with the time of flight. The bullet's in it too long.
How long does it take for that ammo to go the 2 miles?
It really varies. That can be as long as 4 to 6 seconds.
Yeah.
There's only a small, really, group of people that can actually shoot those guns well, because it's so much. The concussion and the recoil is quite significant. So they've pared it down. And the military actually want to have a gun that's capable of shooting 2 miles that weighs under 22 pounds.
Is there a gun out there that you have not worked on that you long to work on?
No, I can't say really that there is. I've worked on a lot of guns over the years.
Done pretty much all of it.
Yeah, all the technology really hasn't changed that much along the way. Some of it is just, it's almost the same thing. You know, a bolt-action rifle, really, from one, if you're shooting a Winchester or a Remington, it's not that much different, really.
Do you have a gun that is your favorite to work on?
I like them all, yeah, because they're interesting. I like handguns.
Who are your customers?
Boy, that's a question to ask. Everybody, except people who just end up finding me somehow. They're just people who are hunters or people who are just into nice guns. We get a lot of that because, most of the time, when a guy wants a custom gun, he doesn't want something that's just off the shelf.
Yeah.
He wants a nice gun. He wants one that fits him and that's made a certain way. And so they seek out somebody who does those kind of jobs.
And competitive shooters
Yep.
all know about you, probably.
Some of them certainly do. And I really like that aspect of it, of being able to build really accurate guns for people.
Christian, why do you love this so much?
Because the weird things that happen to us. I don't know if you saw it on the internet. Maybe they found a cannon of Coronados. Those were making replicas so that they can go to the museum for those.
That's what that is?
That's what those are. The breeches on the end, I just threaded them and fit them, and now we're going to put them in the lathe and pattern them so that they match the exterior of the bronze.
You're doing that right here in this shop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important project.
They're just, like I said, they're just more tools. They're just guns. Some of it becomes work. And so that's why I like to farm a little bit too, because fixing antique broken farm equipment is just another part of what we do. People don't do that stuff anymore. I fix broken farm equipment.
You're a fixer and a builder.
When my dad went to law school, it was basically his dad, of course, who said, well, there are only 3 jobs.
Doctor, lawyer,
and clergyman. There's nothing else. That's all you can do. And
those were the jobs that your dad was given by his dad. Those were the options.
That's just the way the world worked then. They were like, this is it. You only have these options. So.
And these days, at 62 years old, Christian is facing that age-old question. What happens to all of this when I can no longer do it? Like many of us who work to build a business they love, he hopes someone will come along that can love it as much as he does. He does have a son, but
today the world is not the same as it used to be, so
No.
He's definitely got to find that spot. They're so used to the phone thing and doing, the online world that they live in is, it's different.
But for you, you've found that spot, haven't you?
Like I said, I've always enjoyed this. I love building things and making things work. People call, and I've got this old busted gun, and I'm like, yeah, we can fix it. Whatever it is, it doesn't make any difference. So
You can fix it.
yeah, we can fix it. I can fix it.
And we want to thank you again for tuning in this week for On the Road with Kelly and Bob. Don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We also have a YouTube page where we post some behind-the-scenes footage of where we go. Be sure and tell your friends they can listen to us wherever you get your podcast or download that free Odyssey app. Listen anytime, anywhere.